One thing I was going to talk about today in the second half, I'd like to devote part of that, or most of that, I guess, to the Knights of Malta, which is an organization which was spoken about some in conjunction with the Jesuits, and the Jesuits apparently do run the Knights of Malta. And I'm going to read from Alex Constantine had an article called Neo-Nazis, and I'd like to read from that. When Hitler's attempt to create a third empire, Third Reich, failed, many leading Nazis escaped through the Knights of Malta and the Vatican rat run to the Americas. Far from disappearing, the Nazi movement and its racist ideology became a force both at grassroots and elite levels. Street-level neo-Nazism is particularly interesting for its overt use of Christian and biblical rhetoric. However, this is hardly surprising when the most powerful of neo-Nazi elite secret societies are directly linked to the Holy Roman Catholic Church, specifically the Knights of Malta, the Italian Masonic Lodge P2, and Holy Roman Empire Restorationist, the Priory of Sion, have all been proved to be linked to the hierarchy of the Vatican. Global members of these fascist groups participate at the highest levels of the military, international politics, and finance. P2, Propaganda 2, are perhaps the most visible and are named after the propaganda machine of Nazi Joseph Goebbels that effectively mind-controlled the German people into believing their Rosicrucian racist ideology that led to the Holocaust. P2 has been linked to the Mafia and directly implicated in the death of Pope John Paul I in 1978, as revealed by the acclaimed book In God's Name by respected journalist David Yallop. It is widely known that Pope John Paul I demanded resignations from Vatican insiders who were members of P2 and were involved in major money laundering for the Mafia through the Vatican Bank. He also planned a complete reshuffle of the staff and the power structure of the Vatican. The next night, he was found dead in his room with a list of names scattered over his body and was promptly buried without an autopsy. Those listed were retained, and many were promoted to positions of more responsibility and power, including Chicago's Bishop Paul Marcinkus, who handled Vatican investments and who eluded a suspicious Italian police by remaining within the Vatican walls. P2, like Hitler's own SS, are the elite of the international neo-Nazi movement. Yet, like Hitler and his occult inner circle, P2 are the ground troops of an even more powerful hierarchical elite. Britain's respected newspaper, The Guardian, portrayed the structure of P2 as a pyramid beneath a pyramid. Its Grand Master, while at the apex of the P2 pyramid, was only at the base of the controlling power structure. It was revealed by a former member of P2, Mino Pecorelli, that the organization was ultimately controlled by the Knights of Malta and their allies within the CIA. Following this revelation, Pecorelli, like so many that have spoken out before him, was found dead. Shortly after, P2's Roberto Calvi, who handled Vatican finances and faced corruption charges, was found hanging under Blackfriars Bridge in London.
A suicide, no doubt.
Also killed to protect the inner secrets of the secret societies. What were you saying, Viz? I'm sorry.
No, I'm kidding. I'm going to a suicide, no doubt.
Yeah. I think when they found him, he had bricks in his pockets. I'm not sure what that was supposed to have meant.
Well, in all honesty, if I guess if I wanted to increase the G-force, I put cinder blocks in my pants too. But yeah, and of course, as you well know, you can argue that Godfather 3 was not the best acted one. All right, fine, I get it.
Yeah, but it was the most.
Yes, it was damning.
Astute, wasn't it?
Yes. I mean,
the thing that got me about it was you got to have brass, to put that out for the public, for public consumption, and to expose it, even though it's done in a dramatic style, but it's based on fact.
I tell you what, there were historical nuggets throughout the Godfather trilogy, and I'll tell you, you and I, we went through high school, never heard a thing about the instigation of Japan by our boycotting them from oil. And yet that's what's stated, if you remember, around the dinner table right before, I guess, they had the celebration for Don Corleone's birthday. And that's when, Tom, he's not a bastard, he was an adopted son.
Yeah, he was actually, I think, of German heritage. He was an adopted kid that had become their, what do you call him, their counselor.
He became a consigliere, yeah.
Yeah, consigliere, that's the Italian phrase.
But out of his mouth, he said, well, we should have known that, we were going to have a war. We should have known that when we boycotted Japan from oil. And I'm like, what?
Right.
I'm in college now, and I'm like, what? I never heard this. So, I mean, they did lay some stuff down. And, of course, I always like Sonny saying, hey, your country ain't your family. And I'll tell you what, I'm sorry to say, but that's true. Your country's your incorporation, and it ain't your family. So,
right.
but in Godfather 3, you get the P2 Masonry Lodge involved in this. They mentioned that. They mentioned the swindles that took place in the banking situation that resulted in Calvi's suicide, and also the poisoning of John Paul I. So how come on American movie classics, when they run the trilogy, there's only 2?
It's true. I mean, I've only seen that movie once on television and never saw it again. It's been like 10 years or something. I haven't seen it again. But the other 2 I see all the time. I mean, they're listed as being on all the time.
Well, when they just, if you remember, I made a big deal about this. They were going to, for the second time ever, show Godfather, not in their packages 1, 2, and I thought 3, but they were going to do it in a timeline, straight line. So whatever came earliest was done earliest. You know what I mean? Not all these flashbacks necessarily and stuff. So they're going to show it from the timeline of, Don Corleone coming over and all that. And I had seen this in 1977. They had done it one more time. So this is the first time they had done it since then. I'm going like, oh, great, then Godfather 3 will be in there. No. They used one clip in the teaser for this special package where Pacino goes, what did he say? Every time I want out, they bring me back in, Yeah. But not 1 minute from Godfather 3. I mean, I still loved it, We did the Uzo in the morning with the biscotti and all that. We had spaghetti at pasta at night. And we watched this whole thing, and I'm like, they're not going to do Godfather 3. So, at any rate.
I'm just amazed. I forget the guy's name that's the director. Oh, gosh.
What, Coppola?
Yeah, Coppola. Francis Ford Coppola, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that he put that out because, I mean, that could get you killed, man.
Well, I think they thought that Sophia's performance just killed it itself. So. Which I thought worked because she acted like a real human being. And I'm like, well, I could buy that. She was in the dark about everything. So so they said she did a bum job in acting. I'm like, well, actually, she was probably like the most real human being in the whole show,
Yeah.
But at any rate, yes.
I thought it was fairly well done. It wasn't as well acted or even as well written as the other 2, but it wasn't bad.
No, there was.
And it was so much the politics in it and the importance of the events that were displayed there were considerably, more weighty than the other 2.
It got a little close to home in those ones. So
yeah.
All right. Thank you for indulging me in that.
No problem. It is known that P2's former Grandmaster Alessio Gelli is also a Knight of Malta, as are most of Gelli's inner circle within this neo-fascist Masonic lodge, which has members and affiliated lodges throughout the world, particularly in Europe and South America. And P2 are intrinsically linked at the highest level to the mysterious Priory of Sion, the I'm a dragon but still a Catholic secret fraternity sworn to protect the Dragon Grail heritage and restore and expand the Holy Roman Empire in any capacity. According to the Holy Blood, Holy Grail authors, only 2 days after his appointment as Grand Master of Sion, Pierre Plantard de Saint Clair met with P2's Grand Master Alessio Gelli. Following the Italian authorities' raid on Gelli's Roman villa in 1981, files were discovered listing members of affiliated secret societies, indicating the pools of recruitment for this cabal within a cabal. Included were the Roman Catholic Church's ideologically fascistic quasi-cult Opus Dei, who have thousands of members worldwide and possess immense investments in land and businesses. Their new American headquarters, built in New York City in 1999, cost over $42 million. Also uncovered were membership lists of the Knights Templar, another trans-Masonic fraternity of pseudo-aristocratic bloodlines and initiates. Needless to say, the vast web of connections of the international neo-Nazi movement has impeccable credentials. While Gelli is now serving a prison sentence for fraud, Roberto Calvi's widow fingered former Italian Prime Minister and Opus Dei member Giulio Andreotti as the true head of P2. It is no surprise that Andreotti is also alleged to be a member of the Priory of Sion. Italy's current Prime Minister, this was written a few years ago, but anyway, Italy's current Prime Minister, Silvio Berlusconi, who effectively controls 90% of Italy's film, TV, and radio through his media empire, is known to be a former member of P2. And much has been written about his rise to political and economic preeminence with P2's direct support. Berlusconi's recent tenure as president of the European Union gave him a greater international legitimacy and could feasibly have allowed the hidden dragon empire to tighten its grip on Europe once again. With neo-Nazism's solid links to both the Rosicrucian secret church and the official Roman Catholic Church, it is not surprising that street-level neo-Nazi organizations such as the Arm of the Lord and the Covenant of the Sword, Stormfront, and Christian Identity use symbology and rhetoric from both camps. The cross within a circle, like the swastika before it, is central to Rosicrucianism and has become the corporate symbol of neo-Nazism. White supremacist claims are backed up by biblical references of a traditional Christian nature, thus creating a quasi-occult and Christian belief system that is as confusing to the world today as it was under the Third Empire of the Nazis. This may also explain why fascism and Nazism held ground in most of the Catholic countries of Europe, Germany, Italy, Austria, Croatia, and Spain. With friends in such high places, it is not surprising that the neo-Nazi movement today has the unshakable self-confidence to persistently deny that the Holocaust ever occurred. Even the written admission by the Holocaust infamous architect Adolf Eichmann fails to convince. But this is wholly consistent with the neo-Nazi's Rosicrucian ideology that teaches to control the will, one must deny the negative consequences of one's actions. Stop at that point in case you have any comments.
That's pretty heavy stuff to have said that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I really like Constantine. I wish that there was some way to get the guy, to be interviewed.
No, he won't do it.
He just won't.
I mean, have you ever tried to email him?
I did at your request one time, I don't know, 3-4 years ago.
And what happened?
You told me that
Yep.
he hadn't responded to you, and you wondered if he might respond to me, So I tried, and I asked him, could I possibly talk to you, blah, 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 and no reply. What I heard from somebody, I can't remember who, or not personally, but I heard it in an interview or in some writing, was that Constantine has his life has been threatened several times. People have tried to kill him a couple of times. That I think in one case they tried to shoot him, and in another case they tried to blow up his apartment or something.
They didn't try to run him over on a snowy road, right?
They didn't.
Well,
but at any rate, I think that's why he's so insular and why he doesn't talk to very many people.
Well, I'll tell you what, Constantine answered Angie.
He did?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Because at that time she posted his picture and he must have liked it.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there.
Yeah. Well.
No, I mean his work is good. If he wants
girls
to be
can get things done, guys just can't do.
Attaboy. Send your emails too. All right. All right. Thanks for that. But that's a pretty heavy hitting stuff. And what work of his does that come from?
It's just a little article called Neo-Nazis. He put it out, I guess. It's going on 10 years now. It was in the early 2000s. And I had a series of those articles. It was under the heading of the spider web, but I can't find a link to it anymore. I can't find the articles. I do go into his website sometimes and look at some of the stuff he has. He's got a ton of. I just admire the guy. I'm really fascinated by he comes up with some interesting research, and
well, do you remember?
He writes well too.
Do you remember when he came out with Operation Mockingbird back like in 2000 or something like that?
Yeah.
That's where that started. Now I'm going to say something also. Harry and I used to talk about this, and Harry says, I swear as a kid that I heard that the Holocaust was like 15 or 10 million. He goes, and then it was like 9 million and 8 million. He goes, and I'm looking, I'm going, oh, well, I don't really remember that. I said, but I'll tell you, honestly, probably it was that high. Mm-hmm. The gas chambers don't represent everything. Mm-mm. It's the working camps. I mean, if I'm going to be a
like
devil,
in Peenemünde, no telling how many people, where they had their rocket launching, their rocket facilities in Peenemünde, and I think the other one was Nordhausen. They killed multiple thousands of people there. Worked them to death.
Yeah, work them to death makes sense.
Right.
You get something out of
them.
They
would allow them so many calories per day, and they worked them as hard as they could, beat them along the line to get them moving faster. And then I believe it was at Peenemünde when somebody was about to drop out, they would just take them and hang them from. They would take piano wire, hang them, and they would hang them from the top of the facility, so that everybody could see them hanging there. And sometimes the weight of the corpse would pull off, and you would have a corpse fall to the ground. And this was their work environment.
Well, yeah, and then you don't even have to waste a bullet.
No,
that's what it comes down to.
And when you get down to it, several million Russian soldiers were prisoners of the Third Reich, and they were exterminated through hunger and exposure to the elements as well.
But
then you get the gypsies. They killed, gosh, I don't know how many of them, and the political dissidents that they killed early on. There was probably another 5 or 6 million killed. It's really kind of hard to say. Nobody really knows how many people they killed.
No.
But it's Adolf Eichmann was the guy who said they killed 6 million Jews, and he ought to know because he was more or less ahead of it. He was the guy who was getting the logistics together and implementing the final solution. He was the guy that was in charge of it for Himmler.
Yeah,
I've seen an old SS buddy of his. I forget the man's name, but I've seen him on the series. It's The World at War that was done in the 1970s with narration by Laurence Olivier. At any rate, they interviewed this man about how many people were killed, and he said he spoke to Eichmann, and Eichmann said he said Eichmann was very distraught. I asked him what was wrong, and he said, "Well, I worried about my responsibility for the murders." And he said, "Well, how many people were killed?" And he said 6 million. So that's where that 6 million figure came from, but that doesn't cover everybody.
No, I think it's low, and I think the gas chambers, of course, are used as the prototypical machine of horror.
Yeah.
But
when they first started off, the reason they started using gas chambers, they first started off, they tried to shoot people, and on the Eastern Front, as they went through in Poland and then into Russia, they would just round up the Jews in the town and anybody else they wanted to kill. Have them stripped down and jump into a ditch, and they would shoot them in the head. But it was not efficient enough. They couldn't kill enough people that way. Plus, it had a tendency to kind of freak out the people doing it as well. It just wasn't. It was too public, and they thought that was a poor method to do it. So they came up with the idea of using Zyklon B to gas them to death.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and Zyklon B was a product of Standard Oil's good friend and partner in IG Farben.
I got to tell you real quick. I've been poking around in U.S. dailies in the mid-1860s, and I saw one article that was really interesting. Now, remember that we're talking about, it was anywhere from 63 to 1866. And it said, Rothschilds take aim on Standard Oil. And what they were prepared to do was to create an outfit and send out fleets that could take the oil being developed elsewhere. I think this was in Asia, and then bring it into U.S. ports and definitely take aim at Standard Oil. Now, I don't think that's true. I mean, there may have been something underneath the surface, but I think at that time, the robber barons had not yet made a peace with the Rothschilds and then a compact to help each other across the ocean bring about a new world order. So, I find it interesting because I'm looking at that and going, well, that doesn't make sense if you think about them as partners today. But that might have been one of the ways to say, look, let's do business together. Otherwise, we're going to be to the detriment of each other. But when you see that headline, it was like, Rothschilds, take aim on Standard Oil. I'm like, oh, how did that happen? And that's what I'm saying, folks. You got to go back in that website and take a look at stuff. Holy mackerel. I mean, I guarantee you, if anybody goes searching in that the database, you'll go in and 3 hours later you won't realize it, has gone by. Incredibly interesting stuff that, of course, has gotten lost through time.
Yeah, it's amazing how everything gets lost in the memory hole. It's amazing the way that Americans have been propagandized to just not know any history. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I always had an interest in history, and a lot of the guys I grew up with, why are you interested in it? It's just a bunch of crap that doesn't mean anything. And I think that was just kind of the attitude that a lot of Americans take toward history. I think America is probably, in general, Americans are probably the least informed people in the world on their own history, if nothing else.
But remember, the robber barons got their hands on the writing of textbooks in the early part of the 20th century. So, it's one of these things where, I did battle with a lot of people about, I'm well versed. I listen to all these, you listen to all the mainstream crap, which means all you're taking in is a lot of crap.
Right.
And of course they were incensed by that. It's like, you listen to that stuff. So what I'm saying is, even if you were a student of history, you're going to get a vanilla story. Mm-hmm. How do you find the books that we talk about that give you a documented past, not necessarily provided for us in our textbooks or even in mass consumption books in whatever bookstores are left, by the way. Mm-hmm. It's garbage. So, to get
what you have to do to really understand history or to get a better understanding of history is go to primary sources, the actual people who were there for those events and their writings and their speeches, et cetera. And that's pretty hard to do because a lot of that stuff has been just kind of shoved to the side. And you get this, like you say, the standard vanilla sanitized version,
right.
The Disney version of American history.
Well, real quick, when we talk about Pearl Harbor, I was startled when I read the book, The Final Secret of Pearl Harbor, by Rear Admiral Theobald, who was there, and what he laid down and what he documented. And then there's, Sinet did the same thing with Day of Deceit, another guy who served at Pearl, and then
didn't Kimmel write one too?
He might have, but you see, Kimmel was the one that they hung everything on.
Yeah, he was the guy that they hung out to dry.
Right.
And in fact, I think in recent years he has been exonerated.
They've softened it up without a doubt. But you want to hear something funny? Down here in, nowhere, Florida.
Yeah.
I got in a conversation with a woman and her family who have been cutting her hair for like 20 years. And I just mentioned it, and they were like, what? Well, it turns out they're related to Kimmel. And they were freaking, so I gave them the book to read, and they were like, thank you so much, because obviously it's not, they made Kimmel a scapegoat.
Oh, yeah, they definitely did.
So,
they definitely did. So that was a setup.
Sure.
He was the guy who had to take the fall, He was in a sense, the Lee Harvey Oswald of this situation.
Well, what's interesting is a listener, Laserwood, I believe it was, sent me a book where this is the true story of what happened at Pearl. And with the foreword by, who was the Secretary of War at that time?
Oh, Stimson, maybe?
Stimson, yeah. And there's a foreword there that says, I availed the author of everything he needed to get this thing finally settled. It's like, great, man. I know.
Great.
I know.
You were in on it. You were in on all the meetings, man.
Yeah. You would have swung if it happened, but you see, there's the story. You argue with, as I have found bitterly with that Cypress Consultant bunch of people. They hold the mainstream story up. This is my story and I'm sticking to it. It's supported by everybody in the mainstream. I'm saying, why don't you guys use your brains? But it's the same old story, and I'll say it ad nauseum. It's like Americans are propagandized into believing they can't be propagandized.
There were so many elements. I mean, really don't have time to go into all that Pearl Harbor stuff, but there's so many elements that showed that it was a setup. And I think, though, it backfired on them in that it was a worse defeat. It was the damage was worse than they had expected, is what I'm trying to say. And but there's no doubt in my mind that it was allowed to happen.
And another interesting tentacle in that whole thing is that's the reason why Tom Dewey lost 2 elections.
Right. Because
he was going to run his mouth about the fact that, without a doubt, Roosevelt and the cabinet knew. And they were like, no, you're not doing that. They threatened to, if he had brought it out, they threatened him with sedition.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, baby. So, I mean,
and during time of war, the President of the United States is basically a dictator. And Roosevelt was a dictator, in a sense, and they could get away with it, If he'd wanted to run his mouth, they'd have slapped him in irons, He would have spent a long time behind prison doors.
I think Dewey has some skeletons in a closet, but it's been so long since I heard what went on that I can't, you don't want to do that and not be able to back it up. So, but I'll say this much. I mean, he probably won that 48 election, but it was stolen from him because he had already transgressed far beyond what he could make up for. And of course, whoever was going to be the, let me just say this. Let's see. He got in at, 48? Yeah, the election between Dewey lost to Roosevelt in 44, and Dewey beat Truman in 48. But late night, suddenly things go bump.
Oh, yeah. It's the same thing in 1960, when Kennedy beat Nixon. And it was the same thing in 2000 when Shrub beat...
down here in Florida?
Yeah.
I tell you what.
What's his name? The lockbox guy.
I saw noontime footage.
Al Gore. Oh, my gosh.
You can't say enough.
What a choice. What a choice in that election. Oh, man.
Well, that's the last one I voted in. But I was going to say that
92 was the last time I voted.
Yeah, well, you haven't missed much in the meantime.
No, I don't think I have. In fact, I'm pretty happy that I didn't stand in line to vote for Tweedledee or Tweedledummer.
I saw on noontime news, how the networks break away, with their little local noontime news.
Yeah.
And there was no doubt that the Florida Highway Patrol were doing traffic stops on certain roads, which back then...
had to be black people, right?
There you go. And they were going to vote for you-know-who.
Arrested for driving while black.
Yeah. What we have here is a failure to communicate.
Failure to communicate. Now, I can be a nice guy. I can be one mean-time bitch.
And I tell you what, there was also a website that carried photos, and it was gone within a day. And I saw it. But the thing that struck me was never in watching elections going back to 1960 have I ever seen a whiplash, stop the presses, holy mackerel, something's wrong. They had Florida delivered to Gore, and all of a sudden, whoops, and I'm like, and again, at that time I was just starting to think that things go bump in the night. And I saw that, I'm going, this is kind of strange. And of course, you saw what debacle that is. And that debacle in 2000 is reminiscent of what took place in the 1876 election when supposed bipartisan people like James Garfield, who was going to be a Republican president in 81, went down to Louisiana to do a recount. And guess what? Their guy won, Rutherford B. Hayes. And Tilden lost. They cited 3 states they were going to go after. I believe it was Florida, I think it was South Carolina, and Louisiana. They went down to Louisiana and said, oh, we found it, miscount.
Yeah.
Hayes is in.
It's amazing, it's like here in Texas, the ballot box stuffing that LBJ did, the Duke of Duval in Duval County, where people came out of graveyards in
Right.
senatorial election and voted for LBJ.
It's like with the vans of drunks that they bring around and they vote at every precinct.
Yeah.
They come back to give him another shot. All right, way to go, guys. All right, okay, thank you.
I was going to go on and talk about the Knights of Malta some more.
Sure.
There's quite a bit of material, and we'll see where that leads. But this is more in relation to the United States and U.S. intrigues. This is from an article called Holy Smoke and Mirrors by David Guyat. It was written in the late 90s. Albert Vincent Carone is one of those people who spent his life dancing between raindrops and turning invisible wherever a shadow lingered. He existed and also didn't exist. Al Carone, under his near namesake, Al Capone, truly was a paradox wrapped in a mystery concealed behind an enigma. Carone was a detective in New York's police department, but this didn't stop him from becoming a made man in the Genovese crime family. He knew all the leading mafiosa of his day, including Vito Genovese, Sam Giancana, Santos Trafficante, Joe Colombo, and Paulie Castellano, among others. Carone was also a full colonel in the U.S. Army, where he had operated in the Army's counterintelligence corps. Unsurprisingly, in view of his close relationship with Bill Casey, he was also a covert operative for the CIA. But that wasn't half of it. Carone was also a Grand Knight of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, which historically has been the military arm of the Vatican and is regarded as a separate state with full powers of statehood, including issuing its own diplomatic passports. In more recent decades, SMOM has acted as a funding conduit, a black market gold channel, and money laundry for the CIA, among others, and is known to act as the Vatican's intelligence arm. It was, for example, alleged to be involved in the disappearance of Russia's gold reserves, over 2,000 metric tons, that vanished during 1991, around the time that Soviet Premier Mikhail Gorbachev was ousted from office. Malta knighthoods are awarded to many leading individuals who are part of the military and intelligence community. The CIA's Bill Casey, for example, was a Knight of Malta. Former NATO general and later U.S. Secretary of State Alexander Haig is also a Malta Knight. Another is General Vernon Walters, the former Deputy Secretary of the CIA under DCI George Bush, and later appointed a roving ambassador during the Reagan administration. The legendary head of the OSS, the World War II precursor of the CIA, was Wild Bill Donovan, not O'Donnell, or I think I called him MacDonald the other day, who was made a knight along with his wartime compatriot and later CIA chief of counterintelligence, James Jesus Angleton. And John McCone, another prominent member of the U.S. Spook Agency, was also distinguished with a Malta knighthood. The list goes on. Most interesting was Reinhard Gehlen, the former Nazi intelligence expert, recruited by the U.S. in 1945-46 to head the Gehlen Org, a secret German-based intelligence arm of the United States that was composed of former SS and Gestapo agents, many of whom, including Klaus Barbie, were wanted Nazi war criminals. The foregoing names amount to a listing of some of the most powerful and influential members of the Western intelligence community over the last 5 decades. One Vatican group that has extremely close ties to the Knights of Malta is the ultra-right-wing Opus Dei. This is an immensely powerful faction of the Vatican today whose public do-good activities eclipse a plethora of the darkest political and financial machinations known to man. It will come as a surprise, perhaps, that Carone was closely associated with Opus Dei, and in particular a covert operation that had its origin back in 1944. This was Operation Amadeus. This highly secretive operation was part of the Operation Sunrise negotiations conducted between Alan Dulles, the then senior wartime OSS officer in Switzerland, but later to become the director of the CIA, and SS General Karl Wolff. This debonair and well-connected SS officer commanded the SS and Gestapo contingents in Italy at the time. The result of these negotiations, at least those parts that are now known about, was an agreement affording amnesty to an extensive roster of SS Gestapo forces in exchange for their agreement to ship their alliance to the West in a pre-planned covert battle aimed at defeating Soviet communist menace. In other words, the Cold War. One spin-off of these Dulles-Wolff arrangements were the Vatican-run rat lines that aided wanted war criminals to slink to safety. Tens of thousands of SS and other Nazis escaped capture as a result of the rat lines. These included such figures as Franz Stangl, commandant at Treblinka extermination camp, and his friend Gustav Wagner, who ran the Sobibor death camp. Others to escape in this manner included Adolf Eichmann, the architect of the Holocaust. Eichmann was later captured by Israeli intelligence agents, smuggled to Tel Aviv, where he stood trial and was eventually executed. In comparison, Joseph Mengele, Dr. Joseph Mengele, known as the White Angel, a war criminal wanted for his cruel and inhuman experiments on death camp inmates at Auschwitz, escaped to Argentina and lived a long life. Operation Amadeus was exclusively concerned with the flight of SS and Nazi war criminals to the South American continent, and their later ferocious covert actions against the indigenous populations, identified under the banner of anti-communism. One individual engaged in Amadeus activities was former Gestapo officer Klaus Barbie, known to the world as the Butcher of Lyon. The principal means of funding Operation Amadeus activities was the hugely profitable narcotics business. Large stocks of SS morphia had been smuggled out of Europe and into Catholic South America at the end of the war in accordance with the Sunrise Agreement. The morphia was accompanied by looted SS gold and large quantities of counterfeit British banknotes, forged in concentration camp by captive but skilled counterfeiters as part of an SS operation known as Operation Bernhardt. The escape lines used to move wanted men around South America away from the prying eyes of Israeli agents also proved ideal as smuggling routes for drugs. Decades later, the stock of heroin smuggled in the United States for distribution by the CIA-protected mafia would be complemented with locally grown cocaine. One of the figures to emerge in the spotlight during the 80s was deeply involved in narcotics traffic was Colonel Oliver North, who authorized the exchange of guns for drugs to finance Contra operations. Oliver North was known to Al Capone under his work name John Caffrey. This was the time when Capone was engaged in CIA-controlled cocaine transaction with Joe Pickles Priscilla, a member of the Colombo crime family. These curious and unusually concealed connections between governments in the form of the military and intelligence community, organized crime, the Vatican, and Nazi war criminals have some significant history. Not least was a secret agreement reached between U.S. naval intelligence officers and Mafia Don Charles Lucky Luciano during World War II. This resulted in the Mafia's decision to aid and assist the Allies by contacting mob figure Vito Genovese in 1943 to prepare the way for the Allied landing in Sicily. As earlier outlined, it was primarily those SS Gestapo units located in Sicily under the command of SS General Wolf that were initially concerned in the Operation Sunrise negotiations. And while large numbers of former Nazis were fleeing south to fight the communist menace in Latin America, and more importantly, to personally profit from their involvement in the drug and gun business, in Europe, the spade work was being laid to overthrow or thwart democratically elected governments via a network of fascist man stay-behind units organized under the aegis of Operation Gladio. Not surprisingly, this would lead to certain involved figures making personal fortunes out of other people's misery, a circumstance that is so commonplace it's barely worth mentioning. These neo-fascist activities would come to prominence in the early 80s following the collapse of Banco Ambrosiano and the death of Italian banker Roberto Calvi, who was suicided and left hanging under Blackfriars Bridge. This would lead to a sensational disclosure about the role of the Vatican Bank, the IOR, in Calvi's financial empire, and would quickly grow to include the activities of mafia financier Michel Sindona, whose activities in turn would implicate leading blue blood banks in Europe and America in mafia activities. Both Sindona and Calvi were close to Opus Dei, who lost around $55 million when Sindona's empire crashed. According to his family, Roberto Calvi was deeply engrossed in helping Opus Dei take control of the IOR, when he was killed. Meanwhile, both Calvi and Sindona were members of the secretive Propaganda P2 Masonic Lodge that is said to have been a parallel government in waiting and which planned to effect a coup d'etat in Italy following a Communist Party victory at the polls. P2 was run by former Italian fascist and member of the Nazi SS, Licio Gelli, dubbed the puppet master by the Italian press. Gelli's connections to the ultra-hard right and fascists in Europe and Latin America were extensive. In fact, he had been deeply involved in establishing the Vatican-run rat lines that aided the worst Nazi war criminals to escape Allied justice at the end of World War II. All told, an estimated 50,000 Nazis were helped to freedom. Jelly had numerous powerful friends, including former Italian dictator Benito Mussolini. He was also a personal friend of Argentina's General Juan Perón, and his close association with Argentina would lead him to be a key figure in shipping a supply of French-made Exocet missiles to sink British task force during the Falklands War. In this endeavor, he worked closely with Ronald R. Rewald, founder of the Hawaiian-based financial institution Bishop Baldwin and Rewald, Dillingham and Wong, a CIA proprietary company and forerunner of the CIA-owned Nugan Bank. The involvement of a CIA front company engaged in financing and providing weapons to be used against a key American ally, Britain, that had the wholehearted public support of the U.S. government may seem somewhat duplicitous. However, in the world of black ops, friends and enemies are interchangeable words, and working both sides of the fence is accepted practice. In terms of hierarchy, Jelly reported to Umberto Ortolani, described by one writer as the great Vatican door opener and a secret chamberlain of the papal household. In addition to his P2 connections, Ortolani is also a member of the Inner Council of the Knights of Malta and has military intelligence connections that date back to World War II. Well, there you see Jelly, who was at the head of the pyramid, at the apex of the pyramid below, and you see that he reports to Umberto Ortolani, who was a Knight of Malta and the Chamberlain of the Papal household. So you begin to see where the hierarchy is leading, and it's right into the Vatican. There are numerous other Masonic groups and secret societies in Europe that move in and out of focus at various times. Almost all of them are Catholic in nature. One of these is the Priory of Sion, a secretive order that first came to public attention in the best-selling books Holy Blood, Holy Grail, published in 1982. The Priory is closely connected with the alleged treasure of Solomon that is said to have found its way to the small French village of Rennes-le-Château in southwestern France, where it is said to have been buried by the Knights Templar, forerunners of the Knights of Malta. The Priory, whose headquarters were located at Annemasse, near Geneva on the Swiss border, are styled as the guardians of Solomon's treasure. But most interestingly, they have numerous subterranean connections to fascists, and those on the far right that date back to World War II. Meanwhile, it has to be noted in passing that Annemasse is said to have been the center for the anti-communist stay-behind units of Operation Gladio. If this is not intriguing enough, another fact stretches coincidence to the point of bursting. In recent years, the Priory of Sion has moved its headquarters to Barcelona and now boasts a Spanish Grand Master. This, one would conclude, is to enable it to be physically closer to the historical heartland of Opus Dei, which was founded in Spain in 1928. If Otto Skorzeny was the leading force in running the SS Brotherhood escape routes to Spinner, the Spider, after the war, and SS General Karl Wolff was the lead negotiator with OSS Swiss chief Alan Dulles, then another Nazi, Walter Rauff, head of the Milan SD, was one of two liaisons with the Vatican involved in the establishment of the Nazi smuggling system. Another important link between the Vatican and SS escape routes was Frederick Schwenk. Excuse me. He was also the man in charge of laundering forged SS banknotes. Before the war, Schwenk was an international arms dealer shipping weapons to China and Russia. He was also the investment manager of the family fortune of his first wife's aunt, Baroness Jeminin Gutenberg, of the vastly wealthy Argentine-based Bunge family, of the massive transnational firm Bunge Corporation that is also known as the Octopus. This title is interesting, for it may connect to the so-called octopus that ties in to murdered freelance journalist Danny Casolaro, who at the time of his death was investigating a number of high-level illegalities, including the theft by the Department of Justice of a tracking computer program known as Promise. Casolaro was writing a book about what he had discovered. His original title, Behold a Pale Horse, was later modified to The Octopus. In a draft page of the book, he described this group as an international cabal who freelance services covered parochial political intrigue, espionage, sophisticated weapon technologies include biotoxins, drug trafficking, money laundering, and murder for hire. Casolaro further stated that this cabal had its origins spawned 30 years ago in the shadow of the Cold War. After Casolaro's death, journalist Carol Marshall followed up his investigation and wrote an as-yet unpublished manuscript titled The Last Circle. Excuse me. In this, Marshall describes her investigation of Robert Booth Nichols, one of the central figures of the octopus, whom she describes as being part of a secretive group known as the Chosen Ones, and who wore, get this, skull and crossbone rings, and shared a common interest, if you could call it that, in the old German SS occultism, its tribal and inner circle rites. During her continued investigation into the octopus, Marshall found that SS occultism outlined above was connected to Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, a former U.S. Green Beret who is a self-professed Satanist, and who held a top-secret security clearance for his work in military intelligence and on classified psychological warfare matters. Aquino officiated at SS Black Magic ceremonies held at Wewelsburg, the castle once used by SS Chief Heinrich Himmler to create an SS Order of Teutonic Knights based on the Knights Templar. The foregoing connections lead themselves to the larger picture of global, interlocking, right-wing fascist groupings that operate in the shadow land of deniable military and intelligence operations associated with profit during World War II and later throughout the Cold War. In this respect, it is intriguing to note that the Priory of Sion, one of the foremost Catholic groups under discussion, uses a symbol, something that is variously described as an octopus or spider on their documents. The Priory association with the octopus could easily relate to the so-called octopus described above, where organized crime worked hand in glove with operatives from U.S. intelligence and the military. If one decides, on the other hand, that the Priory symbol is a spider, there is an intriguing notion of the Vatican-run Nazi escape lines of Austrian Catholic Otto Skorzeny and his SS Brotherhood, Der Spinne, the spider. Al Capone was, as mentioned earlier, a made man of the Genovese mob, in addition to his other associations. It is curious, therefore, to note that one of the leading lights of the octopus, according to writer Carol Marshall, was ultra-right-wing oil tycoon, drum roll please, Clint Murchison, owner of the Dallas Cowboys football team. Murchison's oil company, Murchison Oil Lease Company, was 20% owned by Gerardo Catena, the chief lieutenant of the Genovese crime family. Throughout the Second World War and thereafter, there was, according to author Charles Higham in his book Trading with the Enemy, a general agreement of certain major figures of American, British, and German commerce to continue their relations and associations after Pearl Harbor. Higham adds that he also learned that certain figures of the warring governments had arranged to assist in this activity. Higham's subsequent research proved the existence of this high cabal that he dubbed the Fraternity not only existed but benefited handsomely through World War II. This led the author to ask, what would have happened if millions of Americans and British people struggling with coupons and lines at the gas stations had learned that in 1942, Standard Oil of New Jersey managers shipped the enemy fuel through neutral Switzerland and that the enemy was shipping Allied fuel? Suppose the public had discovered that the Chase Bank in Nazi-occupied Paris after Pearl Harbor was doing millions of dollars worth of business with the enemy with the full knowledge of the head office in Manhattan, or that Ford trucks were being built for the German occupation troops in France with authorization from Dearborn, Michigan, or that Colonel Soethanus Ben, the head of the International American Telephone Conglomerate, ITT, flew from New York to Madrid to Bern during the war to help improve Hitler's communication systems and improve the robot bombs that devastated London, or that ITT built the Focke-Wulfs that dropped bombs on British and American troops, or that crucial ball bearings were shipped to Nazi-associated customers in Latin America with the collusion of the vice chairman of the U.S. War Production Board in partnership with Goering's cousin in Philadelphia when American forces were desperately short of them, or that such arrangements were known about in Washington and either sanctioned or deliberately ignored, end quote. Higham's fraternity has certain similar characteristics to the so-called octopus and also shows similar characteristics to Colonel Oliver North's enterprise. All have engaged in the most dubious and illegal activities for profit, and all operate hand in glove with organized crime. All lean so far to the right, ideologically speaking, that the word fascist can be used without reservation. Meanwhile, none of them care very much for the woes of humanity, and indeed appear committed to stomping on ethics and moral values whenever they meet them. The octopus, or octopus, as one European documentary film producer renders the spelling when referring to Opus Dei, which began on 2nd of October, 1928, has 8 arms that surround its mouth, ensuring constant supply of food, and 3 hearts, and is not therefore conducive to starving or dying, but it also can be identified by these oddities. Opus Dei, the group that are now in control of the Vatican, are undoubtedly one arm of this global criminal network in this writer's view. Or are the 3 hearts of the octopus more vital to identity? Could they be analogous to the church, state, and mafia, the forces that prevail beneath the play of the shadows of the world? As described by Nick Tosches in his book, Power on Earth, that tells the life story of murdered mafia financier Michel Sindona. There is yet another interesting twist to this accumulation of associations. Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands. The prince was the founding chairman of the publicity-shy Western power elite, the Bilderbergers. This shadowy and secretive group meet over a weekend in May every year under an almost total media blackout. Powerful and very influential figures from the world of banking, business, politics, and media, trade unions, and including regularly, for example, are Dr. Henry Kissinger, David Rockefeller, Italy's kingmaker Gianni Agnelli, and other illustrious figures. The first meeting took place in May 1954. This strangely was the same year that Prince Bernhard became head of the Johannite order in the Netherlands, one of the 4 orders that make up the chivalric alliance of orders of St. John. The stated purpose of these 4 known as the alliance that are composed of North European nations, Germany, Netherlands, Sweden, and Great Britain, the latter being an ancient order known as the most venerable order, is to reduce to silence the enemies of Christ. The headquarters of the alliance is located in Switzerland. These are Protestant order rather than Catholic, but it is of significance that on 26 November 1963, the alliance was consolidated with the signing of a joint declaration between the Sovereign Military Order of Malta and the Most Venerable Order at St. John's Gate, London, by the Grand Chancellor of the SMOM, the Prince of Resitano, and Lord Wakehurst, Lord Prior of the Most Venerable Order. In other words, the Catholic and Protestant orders bound themselves to work together to silence the enemies of Christ, a clear reference to communism.
What a bunch of crap.
Take a break. At any rate, I think it clearly illustrates, who the power brokers are, and like I said before, it shows where the pyramid. It's a cabal within a cabal, and it shows where the lower pyramid leaves off, and where the upper pyramid starts out, and who's at the top, and that would be the Vatican, and that would be the Black Pope.
Well, I think you'll agree. The Bilderbergs, are really not as shadowy as they used to be. There's quite a lot shown on them, but they're not the answer. They're just another organization, agency. But but of course, the Patriot Radio, mainly because of Jones, has thrown that out there as like they're the guys. They're not the guys.
Well, isn't it interesting how he can always identify organizations like the Bilderbergers, and they are part of a push toward a new world order. They really are. But he can always identify people like that, but he can never really get into identifying the Jesuits, the Knights of Malta, or anyone else associated with the Vatican, Opus Dei. He never gets into that at all. In fact, isn't it interesting how some of his friends, some of his very close friends, are Opus Dei members?
I got friends in low places.
Yeah.
No, look, Ron Paul, go to LouRockwell.com, which is pro-Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
They have everything that Tom DiLorenzo has ever written, which just continues to crucify Abraham Lincoln. It's like, look, he's dead already, all right? But
you got him.
Yeah, they got him. That's absolutely right.
You got him, and you got away with it, and the world let you get away with it.
And then there's this stuff. I don't care what Lincoln was. Look, if you're going to be president, guess what? First of all, you're going to be a prick. All right? You can't be anything but if you're going to do that.
The thing that's amazing is Lincoln even knew that the Jesuits were on his trail. He stated it. he wrote about it.
Just think of one thing, and this is conjecture, but consider this. If, in fact, and we believe it to be true, that Chinneky's counsel to Lincoln, and Lincoln's understanding that, especially, okay, look, what was his sin? Wanting to rapidly end the war. Let's get it over with. Mm-hmm. His own party didn't want it. The beef for cotton people didn't want it because money was being made. Mm-hmm. And when he was too conciliatory too quickly, and you can say it might have happened at Gettysburg, that might be true, then he was a marked man, so that his dream of seeing himself in the mirror, do you remember that dream?
Yeah.
He saw himself once and a half of himself, remember?
Right.
That he would not fulfill a second term. I don't think so much was a supernatural or a prophetic dream, but I think he realized if he didn't have the stomach to prosecute this war further and cause more misery and suffering, I'm not even saying the slaves were involved in it. I'm not even mentioning.
I think it probably came out of his subconscious.
I think he knew when he changed his mind, his ass was grass.
Well, probably consciously knew it, but all that anxiety came out in the nightmare, the dream, whatever you want to call it. He also had a dream where he walked around and saw his body.
Yeah, in the
lying
in
in state.
That was it.
And asked who it was, and then he looked down and it was himself.
Yeah. I'll just say this: it could have been dreams, or it could have been his way of telling folks that what he had made up his mind that they never understood had been changed. Mm-hmm. That's his way of putting it out there. That's just a thought, but you know what? It would be, I guess, more palatable, if you will, that he was prophetic about his death. No, he understood when he was not going to prosecute the war further than was desired by the North and Europe. That, okay, dude, you broke the treaty, and we'll get our revenge. Mm-hmm. Because when Booth whacked him, and this is what I wrote in the emails that you'll see on Monday, when Booth whacked him, it had no advantage for anybody. Mm-mm. The CSA had already surrendered.
Well, it was definitely going to hurt the South.
Now, in what way?
If I'm sitting up there in Washington or New York or Boston, and I find out that a Southerner or a person who was supposed to be representing Southern hostility toward Lincoln, and I find out he's blown Lincoln's head off, I'm going to have a real bad attitude toward the people of the Confederacy, of the old Confederacy.
All right.
I'm going to want to rub their nose in it.
I'll give you that. But then that makes sense of the fact that they made sure the Reconstruction Acts were passed. Mm-hmm. They threatened Johnson. I mean, they physically threatened Johnson with impeachment. Mm-hmm. So, yes, you could say that. But the thing was, it did not help the CSA.
No.
They were doomed.
However,
you're right.
It was the worst thing that could have happened to them.
All right.
I mean, to the ordinary people, not the politicians in the South, but, everyday farmers and everyday, blacksmiths and tradesmen and, just the ordinary people in the South. It was the worst thing that could have happened because that meant that Reconstruction was going to be rough.
Oh, it was. You're absolutely
I won't go into it, but my own family suffered from that.
Well,
lost property and just their whole way of life was ripped up on my mother's side. Her folks, her ancestors.
Well, remember that the 11 states that rebelled, with Tennessee being probably the least of the problems, mm-hmm. Were brought back and they were acknowledged as peaceable and back in the Union. And then what do you know? I don't know how much span of time passed, not much. And then all of a sudden they were put under Reconstruction Acts and martial law. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, what happened about that thing about us being brought back into the Union as peaceable? Right. So, and you're right. I mean, so if
it helped nobody. No. And I know you've done numerous shows, and I know you've got a pretty good rap about how the Jesuits were involved with that. Do you want to go into that now?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me throw this out and we'll see where it goes, okay?
Okay.
But before I do that, since you did broach this, do you want to lay something down first?
No. I just my whole point in today's diatribe or whatever is was basically to show the pyramidal structure and who is at the top and what I think what has led to us becoming what we hated, and that is the machinations of the Vatican and in particular the Jesuits.
All
and
right.
I think they are the people behind the two world wars and the people who will be pushing for the third world war. And, of course, it's not that simple. There's a lot of organizations involved, secret societies involved, occultists, et cetera, et cetera. We've been through all of that. But since we're summing up, we're getting to the end of the programs, I wanted to say, well, here's where it really, it all leads back to. And that was my point with talking about the Jesuits and the Knights of Malta.
I'll say this. I've been poking around, like I said, the newspaper archives of the mid-1860s. And what I found interesting was this. The Saturday Evening Post seemed to be the mainstream propaganda machine. And the New York Tribune, now remember, you're dealing with the Saturday Evening Post, all right, even back then, and you're dealing with the New York Daily, that took issue with the Saturday Evening Post, and they said, first of all, Surratt John escaped, obviously, the tribunal and the hangings, which his mother did not. He went up into French Quebec and hung out there with a Catholic priest.
How interesting, a stronghold of the Jesuits.
Well, yeah, and even during that whole beef for cotton incident, both Southern and Northern representatives met in a hotel in Montreal and banged this stuff out. I mean, it's laughable. Even Booth was up there. Now, so Surratt now leaves by ship out of Canada, and he winds up in not the Vatican Guard, the Vatican Army, as I talked to Denton about. He was in the Vatican Zouaves. And then when he gets found out, the Saturday Evening Post goes, well, clearly he had no idea that the Vatican had no extradition compact with the United States. And it's like, hold it right there. This guy was being tutored by a Catholic priest in Quebec. And the guy never told him, oh, by the way, go there because the U.S. can't extradite you. That probably never came up. Damn. And then the Saturday Evening Post said he was an ignorant man, and the New York Tribune said, well, no, he's not really, because he got a degree from, guess where, Georgetown.
Oh, well.
Right. And then they said, well...
Even better.
Yeah, and the last thing they did was make an excuse about why he left Rome to get on a boat to go to Alexandria. Oh, well, he was just... No, he was trying to evade capture by U.S. authorities who got his ass in Alexandria and brought him back. And then what happens is he's brought back to, guess where? Georgetown. They have a trial. It's a hung jury. He walks.
And nobody can figure out the connections?
No.
Come on.
His confessor was Wygat out of Baltimore, which you could argue is probably Jesuit Central. Both Baltimore, which has Loyola University, in which Di Lorenzo is a prof. I mean, and I was going to tell you before, Lou Rockwell, too, you'll see 2 letters by Ron Paul that are glowing, acclamations of John Paul II.
Oh, yeah.
So there's Ron Paul, who kisses ass with his Latino Catholic constituency. He'll be elected until he dies. And then he'll still probably win posthumously. And that's Alex Jones' buddy.
Yeah.
And that's how it all goes down.
Oh, yeah. Alex Jones started promoting him years ago. And as we had a very large segment on one of the episodes where talked about his fascist, racist background.
Leanings, yeah, sure.
And, it all comes together. You start to see where it all leads and where the real impetus behind it was. When you think about the Vatican and the Jesuits putting Mussolini in as their first fascist dictator, and then a series of other people, including Hitler, of course, the most important one, you begin to see where it's all leading. And you begin to see who the power is that wishes to control the world and is doing a very good job of consolidating all that power and eventually will be the seat of the one world government. And that's Rome and then eventually Jerusalem. But that's for another time, I guess.
Well, I had to laugh, too. It's another one of these asides. I was reading a newspaper, Harry and I, when we were at the library, when I was at the library. And I cracked up, and I called Phelps later on. And I said I read him, I'm going, well, the mystery's over, Eric. He goes, what's up? He said, the Jesuits had a V8 moment. You know, one of those palm to the forehead things. They didn't realize that they had the pistol with which the assassin of Archduke Ferdinand shot him. We got the gun. We don't know how it happened. And he cracked up too. It's like, yeah, I mean, they are.
Oh my God!
They
I did
never
not know
stop.
that.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
we have the. We got the gun.
We had to have it. Golly, I don't know how we got it.
Oh jeez. Ay ay ay.
Could it be that we set the whole thing up?
Oh.
Could it be that we were trying to bring on World War I? Oh my God!
I know, but that was the best. It's like, damn, I didn't realize that was there all that time. I don't know.
Yeah, they definitely wanted to get rid of the Serbians, and anybody who was Eastern Orthodox.
Well, there is a funny story, and if the anecdote is true, that Serbia just about had enough of what they were going through, and they had marshaled whatever they had in Air Force, and they decided they were going to go to Rome and bomb the Vatican.
Yeah.
You remember this?
Yeah, I remember reading about it.
Right. And
but they had bad weather or something.
Yeah, cloud cover prevented it. And the story goes that the Lord said to them, "I'll take care of this."
Yeah.
You're not doing anything. I know, that's what I'm saying. Don't worry about it, guys. I got the score.
That's the only thing that keeps me going, man, when I see some of these, just the enormity of the oppressive nature, of what we're fighting against. It's, one small individual or even a group of individuals like us, we account for very little other than just trying to give people information. But we're on the winning team.
When you say us, I keep thinking of saying to you like what Tonto said to the Lone Ranger when the Indians. You remember that? When the Indians were descending upon.
What do you mean we?
What you mean we?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to make this last statement and then we'll call it a day.
Okay.
And I mean this seriously. I'm going to have to say something in a Stuff and Things, the last one I'm going to do.
Yeah.
About being misinterpreted. I don't mind being criticized for what I say. Mm-hmm. I do mind getting criticized for what I didn't say and gets misconstrued, but that's for another time. But my point is, honestly, if this world is all you got, if that's all you believe that there is, or that you've constructed some kind of afterlife by your own designs, I don't know how you do that, but okay. But if that's the case, I'm going to say this, that probably 99% of the patriots, who knows how many who claim that they're really evangelical Christians, and all the other ones who just love to hang around the occult pagan haunts. Mm-hmm. The thing is, for the most part, it makes no sense for you to try to hang on to the moral right way, if you know what I mean. Because you got nothing to go for, then you might as well suck up to your new oppressors and get the best deal you can. And I'm sorry, but that's exactly what's going to happen. I mean, we've all heard so many people run their mouth, on sports teams and bars and all this other stuff, and you know right away that they never did crap. And I tell you what, I got an email once from a veteran. Mm-hmm. My dad caught both wars. What a bonus, right? Yeah. He gets brought back into Korea after being out for like 6 years. And,
wow.
He never went to the American Legion. He never went to the VFW. He didn't want to know about it. I'm not saying he had a bad experience. He just didn't want to know about it. And I always find that the ones who pop off the most in those places did the least.
Yeah.
And I got a vet that wrote me one time. He said, "You're absolutely right. Those who were there and had to deal with stuff don't want to talk about it. They want to try to zip it up and forget about it because of what it is. But the ones who did nothing are the biggest mouths in those halls." And I'm saying the same thing about what we're facing with the NWO. These New Age cats, these occult people, all this stuff, the pagans, the red ice. I mean, let's call it what it is, man. Tessarian and the rest of the ghouls, you got nothing to offer. This is it. So don't worry about trying to be good or whatever you're supposed to do, because honestly, when the deal goes down, you'll kiss ass with the best of them. And I think you would agree that most of these characters who are like pumping their fists in the air going, yeah, we'll do the NWO, guess what, dude? When it turns its head on you, you're going to cry for mommy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, your statement that you used to make all the time, and I really like it, was the only way out is up, and you are absolutely correct. These people that are running their mouths, the people that you just listed, they have their heads firmly up their wazoodis. I mean, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not going to go down like that. They're not going to be able to fight the New World Order. You know, and this crap about we got them on their run. Where?
Stop.
Where are they on the run? I mean, they get stronger every day.
You know, and it's not a case, and I hate to use this because it's just a lousy analogy, but it's true. I'm not saying like if rape is inevitable, enjoy it. That's not the point whatsoever. The thing is, if we thought we had a fighting chance and there was some idea, that's okay. But it's clear to us that, I tell you what, Lady Biz and I were watching something where there was some kind of revolt. I don't remember what it was, but, you know, everybody's using the same guns, and I'm like, well, okay, that's fair. But we're not doing that anymore. I mean, we are so far beyond that moment that to turn around and say, yeah, let's have it out, let's fist fight, whatever. Are you serious? It won't last 10 minutes.
Mm-mm.
And it doesn't make me a coward or anything else. It just makes me sensible when I'm saying, look, this is not a level playing field. I wish it were. It's not.
You know, along that note, last weekend, I went to a gun show here in Austin, and I happened to notice there was a particular weapon that I was interested in, which I bought. I usually buy ammo there too because it's cheap. But there was a guy there who was buying. He had like 2 or 3 assault rifles. I think it was a couple of assault rifles. I just happened to notice him, and he had on his InfoWars shirt, you know, and his, you know.
Oh, geez.
I'm thinking, my God, you know, this guy's getting an overdose of Alex Jones and thinks he's preparing for the, you know, the apocalypse by buying his AR-15s, and it's like, you know, good luck, pal.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, I like guns, and I believe in being armed. I believe in protecting myself, you know, my family, and that sort of thing. But you're not going to go up against, you know, the military
no.
and the kind of weaponry that they have. They have stuff, you know, they're way beyond just bullets now, pal.
Look,
you know, you know. But he had his InfoWars shirt on. You could tell he was like, you know, had kind of a strut to him. You know, he was gonna take them on. You know, I could just read that, you know, from his posture and the whole deal.
I told you I was behind that pickup truck that had those stickers, and I pulled alongside him, and I'm saying, these people are like ugly as a can of hookworms. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I know. What does that mean? I related this story a couple of years ago. I'm going to relate it one more time. It seems like it might be a little stupid, but it's exactly how I feel. When I was living in Hudson County, things were kind of rough, and there were a lot of gangs in those days, you know.
Yeah.
And the Guttenberg gang was coming to fight us in North Bergen. Now I was very young at the time. I'm like 8 years old. This is mostly like, you know, I don't know, like a 6th or 7th grade.
Oh yeah,
thing.
you told that story. You got up on the roof and just kind of watched it.
We were gonna go and fight them on Hudson Avenue, and I lived on the corner of 75th and Hudson, right? And I got myself a nice lead pipe, and I was banging it as I was walking it, and dummy me, I hit, you know, I don't know what you guys got for sewer grates, but you know, these were perforated holes like in a grate that came out into the street, and I went ahead and I shot it down, and because it didn't hit anything, I lost it and it went down into the sewer. I'm like, I got nothing. So then we turned the corner, right? Suffer me this. We turned the corner, and our leaders, who had sticks and stuff, in sight of the enemy coming down Hudson Avenue, got on their stomachs and started making rat-a-tat noises like they had machine guns. And I'm like, dudes, those aren't machine guns. Those are sticks. And I said to myself, you guys are the leaders? Yeah, that's when I kindly did a moonwalk backwards. I went up to the roof of my apartment building and watched the Guttenberg gang turn everybody into red grease. And I'm like, God almighty. And that's what I'm looking at with the Patriot movement. You have no idea what you're doing, you lunatics.
Well, these people, you know, been reading too many comic books or watching too many, you know, or playing too many violent video games, and you know, and they're pumped up on this macho fantasy. It's like some kid who's been watching Rambo too much, you know, and their heads are up their butts, man. They don't know what they're dealing with.
I don't know if you remember when Imus did Rambo's Neighborhood. All right, today, kids, we're going to do interlocking fields of fire. That was the best. That was the absolute best. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're all going to like pump iron and strip down to our bare chest and have 2 sets of bandoleros around us. And we're just going to feed the machine gun, which we'll shoot in the right hand while we're having a ham sandwich in the left. So Adrian, like what, Southpaw, South Philly, never mind. Hey, Adrian. All right.
It's amazing. Well, I was going to tell you a little brief thing that's going on with me is in my obsequious attempts to to seek political asylum in Canada, I've decided to watch the hockey playoffs, and I don't know who to root for. But I was going to go with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I like the Toronto Maple Leafs. I like the their colors and everything. But they're not in the playoffs.
They're not in the playoffs. Nice going, guy. Well, that's another world conspiracy. Is that how many Canadian teams are in the playoffs now? I don't even think there are any.
Well, Ottawa was in there, but I think they got knocked out.
No, the Rangers took care of them.
Yeah.
No,
I don't remember who else is in it, but I watched a couple games here and there. I kind of like the game. I just don't understand the strategy. I get it. You're moving the puck down the rink there, and you got to get it in the goal. I get that part, but I don't know about what the different positions are and all that. But it's kind of like football with a puck.
I was thinking of soccer, but that's okay.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, it's kind of a combination of all that.
There's a whole story according to and there were a number of them around for a while.
Yeah.
Paul Hoke was one of them. He wrote the book Meat on the Hoof about what? No. He wrote. He wrote Rip Off the Big Game about aligning sociology with sports and how they come out of certain cultures at certain times.
Mm-hmm.
And the Americans were very kind of resistant to a free flow, like in hockey and even in basketball, really, and in soccer, you have your positions, but you kind of like go where you're going to go. Yeah,
well, you don't huddle up.
No, in football and baseball,
you don't have plays. Well, I guess you do have plays, but
yeah, you do. You do have But the thing is,
more like basketball.
Right.
You don't huddle up. So
no, but in football and in baseball, both of those are trenchantly, here's your position and this is what you do.
Yeah.
And he made the case that the baseball, for the most part, came out of the industrial age, and that's what it is.
Oh yeah.
You went from part.
It's very slow too.
The assembly line.
It's very old-fashioned in a sense.
But
I think didn't Jim Bouton talk about that in Ball 4?
He might have.
I don't remember. Might not have been Bouton, but somebody did. They talked about how baseball kind of harkens back to the old days. Kind of like the 1890s in a way.
Well, yeah, he did, and he also began a baseball league across America where you have to play with 19th century gloves and uniforms.
Yeah.
It was funny because he goes and players didn't bow. Well, the Japanese still do this supposedly, but they bow to the umpire.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time I was umpiring when he was pitching, and he wasn't having a good night, and I wasn't giving the pitches, and Bouton walks off the field and he looks at me, and goes, "You know what? You got a strike zone like a mail slot." And I told him I wanted to run him, but it was so funny I had to turn around and laugh. I couldn't throw him out for that. I mean, that's a great line. Yeah, you got a strike zone like a mail slot. So, all right, those are the good old days. All right,
yeah.
we will reconvene at an appointed time we will not share with the public to continue this. And obviously we are coming to the end. But I would ask you, in all seriousness, is this too. Not knowing where you're going to go, and it's not my business too, because this is your show, despite what you say to me.
Haven't said it in a while.
No, but I missed it, so I did it.
Yeah.
But
train now. See.
Well, actually, if you're okay with this, you're going to close out Vyzygoth Raw and live on May 19th. Is that all right with you?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, and then I disappear.
Yeah.
And I will direct all authorities to your place because I have your mailing address. But and also taking a look at Germany, I don't know. I mean, as it was in World War I, as it was in World War II, as it is now, I'm just wondering sometimes if the revenge toward that republic, which obviously got into the Vatican with Luther's theses. That's theses, not. Anyway.
They've always been a special case for the Vatican, the German nation, and of course Germany has a very strange history too, in that it was a divided country. It was divided into provinces, Bavaria and Prussia being very, very different, and the other states. And but during World War I and II, the Vatican really used the German state as its military arm.
Trying to figure out where they would hang in there with the new Holy Roman Empire. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say, but have
Holy Roman Empire will be dominated by. There won't be any. I believe there will be no nation states as we know them now in Europe.
No.
But you will have the Germans dominating, the former Germans dominating the Holy Roman Empire, just due to the way the situation has worked out. And I believe that you're going to have the 10 provinces of the world, would be like you'll have 10 sort of Eurozone
unions, yeah.
Yeah. You'll have, North American Union and I guess South American Union, and I would already have a European Union. I don't know about how the rest of it will be divided up, but it'll be like 10 zones. And I think the Club of Rome even talked about that quite a few years ago, back in the 60s maybe.
Yeah, 68 they came out with the map in their book, yeah.
And I think that's the way it's going to go down.
But you know what?
I think the center of it will all be from Rome and from Jerusalem eventually.
That will be life after the blast. Mm-hmm. Because it's all going to be about economics, which is really Satan's game, because, as we said, mercantilism is his deal.
I wrote to Paul, and Paul Sandu is going to join us next Saturday for our next to last episode. And I wanted to talk about Paul's view of how what America's future will be, and we'll also talk about the plagues that the Bible talks about in Revelations, and the Antichrist and the beast system. And Paul always has interesting viewpoints. I don't know if he necessarily agrees with mine or yours or whatever, but it doesn't matter. He always backs up what he's saying with Scripture, and he always has interesting insights. So I'm kind of looking forward to just kind of sitting back, asking some questions, making a couple comments here and there.
Paul's not rude, but Paul has, I get hit with the same thing. If you do enough research and you feel like you got it all covered and there's nothing else you might have missed, if you get trenchant about your point, I don't see that as being, you get like, you never, I'm like, look, what do you want me to do? You want me to tell you, okay, fine, I'm lying. But it's for everyone to check out for themselves. But
excuse me.
I did not decide this myself. I didn't come to any conclusion of my own, volition. What I did was I just said, look, okay, show me where it's at, and that's it. You can say everybody has a bias. I guess that's true to some extent, but I had no sacred lambs or, demons I wanted to prosecute. I just said, all right, give me the body of work. Hey, look, man, it took me 10 years. I'm sorry. I don't think I did badly at it, but because it doesn't necessarily jibe with the more, I guess, acceptable views of the public, and I didn't do it to be contrary either, hey, I can't apologize for saying, no, I don't believe that. And he's the same way. And I really can't find fault in stuff. But, so, if you got a point and you've done the work, you lay it out, you back it up, and then everybody has to decide for themselves.
Well, I'm just interested to see what he has to say about America's future and how he sees it going down. I listened to the session that you had with him the other day, and I found it interesting. Of course, the first 30 minutes or so, Static City, I couldn't listen to it for very long, but the rest of it,
I know. It's
about 2.5 hours, so it was quite a bit of good information there. And I found it real interesting. He always has insight that I haven't heard of before.
All right,
I think it'll go well.
Oh no, It will. There's no two ways about it. And it's good to have you both together, and that's what you wanted, and he was more than willing to do that.
Yeah, I really did. I've always admired Paul, and I think he's one of the best people I've ever heard speak about prophecy. Simply because it's just a no BS approach,
No.
And he's a very logical guy, and if something doesn't make sense to him, he points it out, and he has some really interesting things to say about the current affairs of the churches in America at this time. And he's right on the money. I agree with everything he said. Get out of those churches. Quit putting your money into these buildings and go meet with your friends, your fellow Christians at somebody's home. It just made perfectly good sense. I've been saying something along those lines for quite a while now. That to me was, very, very interesting, and it was a no BS approach.
I said a while ago that if I had to define the world we're in and we're headed for in one word, it would be deception. Mm-hmm. And that is extremely clear to me that we're headed down that way. And that's all that it's about from here on in. It's going to be a smoke and mirrors show. It is the show that never ends, and many people will fall to it. And that's all you can say. I mean, I don't even think anybody's trying to fake too much anymore in the sense. There's just a great deception that's going to take place. Mm. And those who can be whored away will, in fact, have that happen. That's just the way it is. This is all about trickery now. There's no straight lines anymore. Sorry to say, but I mean now it really is quite the minefield, if you will. Mm. And it's going to be like that from this point on because that was what's prophesied, and I believe that's what we're seeing.
I think you're right. I don't see any. I don't see anything rosy coming up in the immediate future. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people just aren't. They aren't looking at it. What I'm trying to say is they don't want to look at it. They want to fight the New World Order, and come up with some method, where the cavalry will show up and and take over, and everything will be rosy, and we'll get our country back. Well, we never owned the country in the first place, so
no,
there's nothing to get back. And the Constitution, I want to talk about the Constitution. Well, Constitution is kind of a lot of jive too, and but it's just a question of powers of spiritual good and spiritual darkness duking it out, and
that's it.
We're caught in it.
Well, I want to ask these people too. It's like, okay, when was the last time you used the Constitution? They say this stuff. Well, you need it. Well, when was it that you didn't get it? When was it that you didn't use it? I mean, tell me how this has changed. You know what I'm saying? It's all about sound bites and aphorisms and things that are said that after a while, I mean, not that they ever had any meaning to begin with, but they just get like absorbed into the culture as if there was a reality before it. And there's not. Oh, when does the Constitution get you out of a tight jam? It's like blah, 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 So anyway.
Yeah, a lot of people just parrot what they hear. It sounds good to them, so they just mouth it all.
Really?
They memorize a few lines and parrot it. And it's the kind of people that are going to Infowars.com and listening to Alex Jones and spout off, running his mouth, to ad nauseum. But he never points, and I mean it, he never points to the Jesuits or the Vatican. Isn't that interesting? And some of his best friends just happen to be associated with Opus Dei. That's scary. That's really scary, and people are buying into that.
Well, as I told you, I mean, there's nobody on any of these Patriot networks, whatever they are nowadays, that's doing it. They're all patterning the same thing, Constitution, blah blah blah, and it's like okay, fine. I mean, there's just nothing there. Why do you look for the living among the dead? And that's what people do, and that's fine, But again, like I said, in the end, there's going to be a great shaking, and you'll find out who exactly is going to go over and turn to the enemy. And I'll tell you what, it's going to probably be about 95% of the people. I mean, you and I and others, who run our mouths about this also, if confronted with the situation, have to stand and deliver, and that's going to be, our thing. And I think we prepare ourselves for that. But these other ones who think they're going to go out, and kick ass and take names, I mean, as soon as it looks like it's not going to be too good, like I said, they're going to foul their pants and yell for mommy.
Right.
And I don't want to be around it because
well,
they'll give
I don't
up
want
anything.
to scare anybody, but why is it if people could go to concentration camps in Germany, if people could be, killed by the state in mass numbers, rounded up and killed by the state in mass numbers in Germany, a modern, nation, in the middle of the 20th century. Why do you think it could not happen here?
Because we're different.
Yeah.
We're sensitive.
We're Americans, man.
We're warm and fuzzy.
You can't tell us that stuff, man.
Yeah. No, we love everybody. I need some help.
We got freedom, man.
Well, I need some health coverage, so I'm thinking about going to Mexico and becoming a citizen and coming back in. At any rate. All right, Larry, thanks a lot for being with us. Yeah.
You're laughing too much, man.
Yeah, you're laughing too much. Cut it out.
It bothers the occultist.
Yeah, that's right. What up with you? And I also want to mention one thing as well for you people who think we're going to go away. Well, we're not going to really go away, but the segments that we're going to do under this series, which is going to probably number 30 at the least, are going to be available for as long as thinkorbeaten.com is there. It's going to be listed on what will eventually become my archived homepage with Angie with Think or Be Eaten, and the series will be there for for everyone to avail themselves of, starting from the very first. So that will go on, as a reference point or whatever after I disappear. So I've given your name to the authorities, and I wish you well. And I got some extra coupons to Arby's.
Yeah. Well, I turned you into the brain police.
and they saw me as no threat.
Yeah, they didn't see you as a threat.
No, I know. Oh, all right.
That was uncalled for.
But you didn't refrain from it though. That's okay. Listen, what good are cheap shots if you don't take them?
Yeah, you got to follow up on those.
All right.
Man, it's been fun talking to you there.
Yeah, it's been something like that. And unfortunately, if the Lord wills, we'll see you next week.
Okay.
Take care, brother.
Okay.